Hello there, I'm Slyelessar. Thought I'd do a review today of the Ricoh GR2 and the Fujifilm X-T1. First off, I've had the Fujifilm X-T1 longer, I've been shooting with that for some time. The Ricoh GR2 I've only had a short while, however, it will be replacing my X-T1 as a street shooter. So the reason I'm doing this as a street photography video is because that's what I do. So yeah, I'm not going to give you a bunch of specs. If you want specs for either, look all over the internet, it's everywhere. I'm just going to give you my experiences with them both, especially shooting for some of them for some time, and just pros and cons of both, and why I use each one, and how I've used each one, and yeah. So first off, the first thing is being noticed. Now the X-T1, you can put it fully silent mode, so it won't even make a shutter sound. For instance, so first off the X-T1, this is as quiet as it can go. And that's the autofocus. You can't hear that. If you're out on the street shooting, I can literally get under someone's face. Like this, you're walking along, you're huddled together, say Borough Market, and you're up against each other and wham, portrait from that far away. I'm not kidding. So the pros for the X-T1 about being noticed. You can take the candid shot, as I just mentioned. However, it's a beautiful camera and it looks like how people expect cameras to look. That sort of shape, a protruding lens that comes right out. People notice this camera, they'll even tell you how nice it is. And they will notice this far more often than they'll notice that. Which is what you do on the Ricoh GR2. Which, let me open it up. Okay, and this is the click. So, considerably louder. So, the cool thing about the Ricoh GR is it's quiet. So usually when it's quite loud in places, or you've got normal hustle and bustle, traffic, etc., people don't hear that. It looks like a toy, or it looks like just a standardized point and shoot that's, they don't think you're going to be doing what you're actually doing, which is trying to get some really decent street shots. It's small, it's compact, there's no viewfinder, you're not raising it up to your eye all the time. You know, so it's small, discreet and inoffensive, but having that leaf shutter, it does make a click. So shooting from the hip or lower angles, so the X-T1 has one advantage. It has a tilty screen. See the tilt, witness the tilt, which is fantastically handy if you're shooting from the hip, because obviously you can look down at the screen. I'm walking along, I don't actually tend to look at the screen. I'm sort of done it enough to know with this particular lens how far away they need to be, and I will hold the camera like this at my hip, though I don't think you're going to see from my hip from down there, so I will hold it like this and take shots as I'm walking along. Now obviously, even though it's a small mirrorless camera, it's bulky and heavy, and it's not actually very good for you to hold it like this. You probably get some repetitive strain injury. So that's the one disadvantage, even though it does have the tilty screen. Now the Ricoh GR, that's just shooting from the hip. This is piss easy. I mean, piss easy. The button is so easy to push in. So you just be holding it like this from the hip, shooting nothing. No one notices. No one is so candid, but people just don't notice. And with it being the equivalent of a 28mm, you can get in close. I mean, you can get in really close. From the hip, from up here, from down there, even just, you're pointing it there, and I'm just going to be getting someone in the shot from over there. It's just, it's the one advantage. So from the hip, and for not being noticed, the GR2 wins out straight away. Okay, image quality, right, they're both 16 megapixel. Obviously they've got two completely different sensors. Again, go check the specs. So the image quality isn't that much different for the RAW or the JPEGs. I think the The simulations on the Fuji for their different film simulations is fantastic. It looks really nice if using JPEG. I shoot RAW and JPEG, and the reason that is I like to look at the JPEGs on the screen, gives me more accurate of what I want to see, and then obviously I'll use the RAW file. And same with the Ricoh GR, RAW plus fine. The Ricoh simulations, the different effects, they call it effects. The black and white and the high contrast black and white are fantastic. So it helps me see what I'm actually shooting and my end result. So that's why I shoot with them. Both 16 megapixel. As far as I'm concerned, they're both extremely sharp, actually. Both really sharp. So as far as I'm concerned, there's not enough difference to really get into. Focusing. Focusing's a big one. The focusing on the X-T1 is fast. It is quick. It is much quicker than the Ricoh GR2. And the manual focusing, peaking is a godsend. I love to manual focus, and this thing is fantastic for manual focusing, especially if you're putting older lenses on it. It's easily knocked out of place if you're zone focusing, because the focusing ring's just flimsy as. So it's just, that's not really a big deal, to be honest. Most people are going to have autofocus on. Even I'm starting to use autofocus more, and I'm a manual focus user. The Ricoh GR autofocus is slow. A lot slower, a hell of a lot slower. The manual focus is, what's the point? There's no point using it on there. Not in a quick situation am I going to manually focus that. I'm so used to manually focusing, I can manually focus this very quickly if I had to. Not as quick as autofocus, obviously. This thing would take forever. So I'd miss the shot, it's just not worth it. However, it does have snap focusing. So you pre-program how far away you want. 1 meter, 3 meters, 5 meters, whatever. When you click the shutter all the way down really quickly, it snaps instantly to how you've set it. And that's fantastic for street shooting, because a lot of the time, if you're shooting people, you're going to be that far away with this camera. So, goop, goop, from the hit. You know, I don't know why I said goop. When it comes to focusing, the X-T1 generally wins out, but the snap focusing is fantastic for street shooters. Okay, menus. So the GR version 2 menus are very simple, very bare bones. It's fairly customizable with buttons and everything. It's very simple to navigate. The effects, and when using them, shooting looks great. No complaints, really. The X-T1 menus are fairly easy. They're not as bare bones as the Ricoh GR2. There's a bit more of them, but the X-T1 is very customizable. You can change most of the buttons on there to whatever you like, and that is very handy. And of course, great film simulations. Battery life, the Ricoh GR2 is a bit better, does last a tad longer. There's not much in it, to be perfectly honest. I always recommend taking extra batteries if you're street shooting. Or if you're me, I take a couple of film cameras and then one digital camera, and then when the digital camera runs out, that's it. I've still got film cameras to use. Shooting in the rain and wind, dusty, windy, smoggy, whatever. The Ricoh GR2 is not great for that. Dust does get in the lens. It's not really built to handle getting wet, really, if I'm being honest. You know, so it definitely loses out there. The X-T1, however, is weather resistant, which does not mean you can take it down in an extremely heavy downpour. What that does mean is, if it's spitting a bit, you can use it. I've certainly not had any problems, but you don't want to get any electrical equipment wet, really. It's not ideal. But you know, you're more likely to use it if it's raining a tiny bit than you would the Ricoh GR2. But you'd still wipe it off and put it in your bag, let's be honest. So, overall, out of these two, I'm actually moving over to the Ricoh GR version 2 for street shooting, which may sound counterproductive from what you've heard. The X-T1 has better autofocus. The X-T1 can be used when it's spitting if you really wanted to, or in slightly more adverse weather conditions. It does have a silent shutter because it's all electronical. It can go completely silent. However, the Ricoh GR2 can be shot consistently from the hip without your arm aching or your hand or your wrist feeling sore. And I have had a few issues holding the camera like that because I do with the X-T1. I would be shooting it like this, and sometimes I'll just be going like this and then like that. But it's not practical to hold and shoot from the hip like that. It's, you know, you can use it with one hand, but not consistently. It's a two-hand camera, really. The Ricoh is completely a one-hand camera, completely. I mean, it's just, you can get your hand around that in all sorts of ways. There we go. So it's just for candid shots. It's fantastic. Snap focusing. That's why I choose to use it. If I'm being perfectly honest, I didn't think I'd be using it half as much as I am, and I thought that the X-T1 was going to be a far superior camera. It's not. They've both got their strengths and weaknesses. Ricoh GR2 is his own little character. The X-T2 is far more versatile. Far more versatile. Different lenses you can put on it. You can use it for all sorts of situations. The Ricoh is good for street, for just sort of general shots, stuff like that. But you're not going to be using it for these great landscapes. You know, you can shoot landscapes with it. That's not what I'm saying. But it's not built for that. It's built for street photography, let's be honest, and pointing and shooting. And so it's, you know, so I will be using the Ricoh GR2. It just wins for street photography for me, and that's what I need. That's what I shoot. Okay, I've been Slyelessar. Thank you.